Good afternoon, everyone. It is a real privilege today, in a moment, to introduce to you our guest for today, who is really not a guest. He's been here a few times, but he is in a different season of his life today, and we're going to be talking about all that. But let me tell you that next week, we had an opening, and long story, really never had a cancellation. We just have kind of left it, and every time I came up here, Buster was asking me, who are we going to get? I said, wait on the Lord. And so anyway, the Lord really is going to supply someone wonderful for next week. He's an NFL analyst, well known on ESPN. And yesterday I had the privilege to have lunch with him. I know him well. His name is Chris Mortensen. Chris was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer January a year ago. He's still under treatment, and he hasn't done much of this. I mean, almost none of it. Next week's going to be powerful. So encourage people to come. We're going to talk about his health. We're going to talk about what he's learned. We're going to talk about a little football along the way, life, and all kind of matters. And so pray he can do that. He's in between treatments. MD Anderson, 2 weeks ago, has to go back first week of March and build his body up and do the routine. So hopefully the next week he'll be able to be with us. That's surely our goal. So encourage folks about that. If you would, use social networking all you can to get people here, because I really believe this is going to be very, very special. But today is going to be outstanding as well. One of my dear brothers, friends, proven leaders of this region, whom I absolutely admire greatly. Faithful, a warrior, tremendous leader. And Terry says he's a great husband. I wouldn't know that. Incredible man who walks with the Lord and lives out his faith, not one day a week, but 24/7, and is the real deal. I tell people all the time, they ask me about him, I say, I'll tell you what, he's the real deal. You know, you don't get two sides of him. He just is who he is. He's from Tennessee, graduate of the University of Tennessee, volunteers. And we're thankful for Donnie and Terry. His wife is with us today. Terry, thank you for coming. And Donnie just recently is transitioned out of Tyson Corporation. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. And so I didn't want to take too long introducing him. But Donnie, thanks for coming today. And I want everybody to welcome one of the great leaders of Northwest Arkansas, Donnie Smith. Well, Donnie, if I had a company, which I don't, but if I did, I'd sure try to hire you. And you're a tremendous leader. And today, since you have transitioned out of Tyson Foods as president and CEO, why don't you take a moment and tell us what you've been doing with your time? And what in the world is going on with Donnie Smith?
Yeah, great question. So I spent the first week or 10 days screwing up all my technology. You know, I had learned to live on Brenda Kendrick doing pretty much everything for me. Spoiled me rotten. And so, you know, when I got my phone, you know, changed out of the Tyson network and just got my phone, well, I messed all that up. And then, you know, half of me was on Microsoft and the other half was on Apple, so nothing talked to each other. So it took me about 10 days to figure out how to get emails and texts and get my calendar straightened out. Right after that, left and went to Africa for about 2.5 weeks. That's probably been the biggest thing. I'll talk about that in a second. And then last week had the opportunity down in Orlando to speak to a group of laymen and pastors at an event sponsored by Right Now Media. So that was a lot of fun, talking about activating faith at work and servant leadership. But the big deal has kind of been Africa. So 2 things to talk about there. I spent the first 2 or 3 days when I was there with a group of incredible missionaries from Pioneer Bible Translators. I don't know if you know them or not, but they are, I mean, they are really at the tip of the spear, taking God's word and translating it for not just Bible-less people groups, but unchurched people groups. I'm so impressed with their work, and I'm a big sponsor. I'm keynote. By the way, they're having their Least of These banquet on April 21st, Friday night. I'm keynoting that for them. And so I really just wanted to go meet their people out in the field doing the work, and just get into their work with them, and they're amazing. So anyway, spent 2 or 3 days with them, and God really started working on tenderizing my heart there. Then I went over to Rwanda, where our foundation does some work around sustainable agriculture. And God had opened up an opportunity about a year and a half ago for us to get a matching grant, or the potential for a matching grant from USAID. And so it took a while, but I don't want to chase a rabbit or two. So I was talking to Steve Graves yesterday. And Steve told me something very profound. And it was, God cares a lot more about timing than he does time. So I was really, really frustrated with how long it took the government to say yes to what I thought was a no-brainer project. But it took that long so the timing would be perfect. And so God was really gracious through that. Anyway, our project is, so Rwandans, the average Rwandan lives on about $1.25 a day. And our idea is to kind of take a little bit of the integrated chicken model. So build a coop and equip it for a small farmer, which that's the capital investment that they can't make on their own, and then help them get a micro loan to buy the chicks and the feed and start their own little broiler operations, 100 chickens at a time. They can turn that, it'll cash flow in about 60 days, pay off that micro loan and go again. And if our model's anywhere close to right, we'll somewhere between triple and quadruple their income.
Wow.
So, we're going from, $1.25 to $4 or $5, but still, how would you like your income to be quadrupled, right? So, we think it's got a great chance of helping a lot of farmers and become a model that then USAID can go stamp out in other regions. So that's been the biggest effort so far.
That's big. And you were telling me that you really started like working out every day until you went to Africa.
Yeah. I tell you, the last couple of years have been incredibly busy at work, and I probably entered this year in probably the worst physical shape I've been in a decade. And now I've got no excuse, right? So, I've been hitting it pretty hard.
You used to run marathons, didn't you?
Yeah, I've done 5. Now my knees are shot, so I can't do that anymore. But no excuse not to get on the elliptical trainer or the bicycle, or, me and Tony Horton do P90X every day now. So, but I'm gonna get in crazy healthy shape, and then sometime, maybe late this year or next, I want to do Kilimanjaro. Me and my kids, and however many of them want to come, I want to go climb Kilimanjaro. So that's on the list. Yeah.
Talk about that a second. Why is that?
It's in Africa, and I don't know why. I don't know how Africa stole my heart, but it did. Just finding these physical challenges to put out there, to strive towards, keeps you focused. And it was easy to stay focused at work. Now that I'm not at work, I'm a little bit afraid I'll start chasing too many rabbits, and I'll look up and won't have accomplished anything. So I'm getting really focused on what I think the Lord wants me to chase hard after, and I think getting in great physical shape and going to do something crazy like climb Kilimanjaro is part of it.
Hey, that's exciting. Hey, well, listen, talk to me about when you look at your life.
Yeah.
I mean, you have had a massive position. Immediate goals, like one of those, getting your body back to where you're.
Where it honors God again. It
Absolutely.
wasn't very God honoring there for a while.
I'll leave that between you and
Okay,
God.
okay.
But anyway, But with that, the immediate and the long term.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you have in your heart.
Yeah, so I think God gives us people in our lives to help us get through different phases. I can look out and see some, faces of folks that have helped me do a lot of things along the way. Steve Graves has been really instrumental over this last few months in helping me kind of get a plan around what to do. So in the finishing up at Tyson part, our plan was, look, don't start trying to plot out the rest of your life. Focus on finishing well. They're paying you to do a job. You stay hooked up and engaged, and you do that job till you're not there anymore. And so that's what I did. So I didn't spend much time thinking about what am I going to do after Tyson. I just stayed focused on doing my job. Now that I've transitioned out, I consider this year, 2017, to be like an intermission. I don't know if I'm between Act 1 and Act 2, or Act 2 and Act 3, or Act 3 and Act 4. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at in the play, but I know I'm at intermission. And intermission is important. And so I don't want to miss the messages and miss the meaning of what I'm supposed to be accomplishing now. I've said it often, CEOs get way too much credit for the good stuff that happens, and they often get blamed way too much for the bad stuff that happens. But it is a demanding job. And often for folks with demanding jobs, and actually I'm thinking about you in the last 2 years as the president of the SBC, there's a lot of people that benefit from the impact of your job, but there's also those that pay a great price. And that lady right there paid a huge price, particularly in the last 7 years, for the impact that I believe God wanted me to have at Tyson in the workplace and for the kingdom. And so I've dedicated 2017 to paying her back for all of the sacrifice that she's made for more than 7, but particularly in the last 7 years. We've rolled 3 great trips. We've rolled Italy for 3 years. We've rolled Alaska for 3 or 4 years. We've rolled Israel for the better part of 6 or 7 years, just because I never had 2 weeks to go do those right. Well, guess what? We're going. And so I want to spend this year really doubling down on my relationship with God and really doubling down on my relationship with Terry, and spending a lot of time with her and paying her back for all those years of sacrifice. So that's the mission for this year.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Beyond
how
that,
does Terry feel about that, by the way?
I think she's pretty happy about it.
Pretty excited about that, Terry? That's awesome. That's great.
Beyond that, God and I are working through several opportunities. There's been, folks reach out about board seats or various, one thing or another. But I've told everybody, look, I'm not going to get sucked into considering that, because God's given me a purpose for 2017. And that's to get reconnected with Him and get reconnected with her. And so I'm literally telling everybody no. So if you did have a company and you wanted me to run it, I'd say call me on Jan 1 of 2018, because I ain't going to talk to you about it this year. It's just not going to happen. And there's plenty of time, I think, back in that comment about God's timing. There's plenty of time for those kind of things in the future. Right now, God's given me plenty to do in Africa and the other things that He has me at work doing for me to focus on, to keep myself plenty busy and not lose focus, and then give Him plenty of time to speak to me about further assignments down the road. And I tell you, it's, there's a danger in, I've talked about servant leadership for years. A lot of y'all have heard of that. And part of what I said is, you got to be servant leaders are purposeful people, and you don't get your purpose from your job title. Well, now it's kind of put up or shut up time, right? I mean, if I fall apart because I'm no longer the CEO, then I've pretty much lied to everybody for the last 10 years about being purposeful. So, but I won't, because it's not about that. It's about how does God want me to honor Him?
Well, Donnie, you obviously led one of the great business turnarounds in America. And you were the president and CEO for about 7 years, I believe. And I want to go back, for the people that may not know you, and really just to go back also to help all of us to review your time there for a moment. I'm asking these questions. You didn't ask me to ask these questions, but I've asked these questions because I think it's important. We don't need to forget what people have done, not only you, but your team. Tremendous team you were able to bring together. But let's talk about when you came, or when you really took the job as president and CEO 7 years ago. When you took over, where was the company at?
So I think probably the best indicator would be our stock price. When our team sat down, we were trading at about $12.50 a share, something like that. Now that was frankly up from about $4 and something, from a year before. We had decimated our capital structure. We'd had to add probably $1.3 billion to our capital structure between September of 2008 and April of 2009 to keep the company afloat. So a lot of debt. Our cost structure was not good. Our customer relationships had faded. And so what we really needed to do was just get really focused on fixing the fundamentals of our business. And that's what we did. Our team came around, and I remember my first strategy meeting, because, everybody, first thing, CEO comes in, you're going to talk about strategy. So our first strategy meeting, I said, okay, guys, here's our strategy. We are not talking about strategy for at least a year. We don't need a strategy. We need to execute. We need our customers to take our phone calls. We need people to fall back in love with us. We need to improve the quality of our food. We need to improve the safety of our operations. And we really need to improve our cost structure. So let's just go to work. If all that works, then we'll need a strategy. So a year later, we had our second strategy meeting. Not hardly yet. We're going to wait 6 more months. Then we started talking about, but we just got to work fixing the fundamentals of the business. And yeah.
And so now, 7 years later, you announced that transition, I believe, in November, December, something like that.
Yeah.
So talk to us about where the company was when that decision was made by you.
So trading at $65. In essence, and that was, down from mid-70s. So in essence, we multiply the market equity of the company 5 times in 7 years. We have our balance sheet is a battleship. We've got a tremendous capital structure. The leading, some of the things that I'm most proud of is, and we measure, as you would think a food company would, we measure a lot of different things around food safety, everything from instances of foodborne bacteria, all that stuff. Our food has never been safer. Our quality has never been better. In terms of our OSHA recordable rates, the company has never had safer operations. And then you get to the great capital structure, and of course we've had, of the 7 years, 5 were records in terms of earnings. So it's been a great run, and again, CEOs get way too much credit for that sort of stuff. It was a great team effort. And I tell you that what made the difference was just that, a great culture, a great team with a servant leader's mindset who puts themselves aside and just says what's best for the team. And it proved itself in spades that is a great winning formula.
Yeah, and that goes into some of what I wanted to ask you about, what it was like to lead this multi-billion-dollar industry, which you've always been really great about servant leadership and about modeling that yourself and really putting people around you who model that, or they couldn't be on your team. And but anything else, like when you really think about leading it, I mean, there must have been some like pinch yourself moments. I can't believe I get to do this. And who would have ever thought that God would have put me here? Yeah. And the Lord's so blessed when He did.
Yeah, so prayed that prayer every day. If you think back in the Old Testament to the story of Esther, I'll blow through a lot of the details, but the queen was deposed. Esther became the new queen. Her uncle, Mordecai was her uncle, wasn't he? Yeah. Had a mortal enemy that ended up creating a decree that would have basically had wiped out the Jews in what was then Medo-Persia. Esther was the answer. So Mordecai goes to Esther and says, "You need to go talk to the king. We got to work something out." And her reply was, "Look, that's a dangerous thing. People just can't send to the king. If he doesn't hold out his scepter, I'm pretty much dead." And Mordecai said, "Look, how do you know that you weren't made queen for such a time as this?" Now, how do any of us know what our "for such a time this moment" or moments is or are? I don't know. There's no reason I can think of for me to be the CEO of Tyson Foods. There's no reason for me to think of why God would save me spiritually. I mean, I haven't given him any reason to want to do that. So, but he did. And how do I know that all of that happened, again, back to this timing thing, for such a time as this? Because something's going to get said today that impacts somebody that's here that really wasn't planning on being here, but they just thought, "Hey, cheap lunch, I'll show up." I don't know. Who knows? But I think every day as Christians in the workplace, sometime between the time we get out of bed and the time we walk in the door or get in the truck or wherever our work starts, we need to pray, "God, if this is my for such a time as this day, don't let me miss it." And so every day walking into work, I prayed, "God, if whatever impact I'm supposed to have, don't let me miss it." And then, God just kept revealing all these great leadership lessons. One of our phrases was "the answer's in the room." And look, nobody comes to work and says, "You know what, I think I'll go in and screw up today. I want to be miserable. I want to be unclear about what our objectives are. I just really want to be miserable and make everybody around me miserable." Now, you may think they think that, but they don't. It happens in the environment. They really don't think that. But what rarely happens is leaders actually ask the people, "Look, what are we good at? What are we not good at? And how would you fix it?" And you know what? People will tell you, because they don't want to come to work and be in an environment where you can't win.
That's right.
So I spent a lot of time asking 3 questions everywhere I went. What are we good at? What are we not good at? And what would you do? And the answer's always in the room. They'll tell you how to fix the business. People, I don't know who said it first. Everybody claims it. But the phrase is, people don't care what you know till they know that you care. Not only is it biblical, it unleashes power and goodness in an organization. If you will just care first without expecting any return of care. You can go back and look at any speech, any recorded video, whatever. For 7 years, I never asked anybody at Tyson to trust me. I never said, "Y'all trust me." I never said that once. Because trust is earned. What I needed to do is be the leader they needed me to be, believe in them, care about them, and get them involved in fixing the business. You get 115,000 people focused on the right thing, something's moving. You better be right what the right thing is, because something's going to move. and that's what we did, and we all did it together. And I think those are the big leadership lessons that I look back on, that I learned about, the impact leaders can really have. It's more about turning people loose than it is about giving people orders.
That's very insightful. Very good, Donnie. Let me ask you this, Donnie. I thought about how many years you were there as CEO. A lot of people don't understand. When you're the CEO of a major company like that for 7 years, you're beyond the norm. And I saw numbers as low as 2 years or so with many CEOs. But I thought I would just Google what Fortune says about it. Not that they're the ultimate authority, God is, but Fortune's own CEO data indicates that out of the 500 largest companies in the United States, that the median CEO tenure is 4.9 years. But there is quite a range because that includes people that have been there for decades versus the guy that was just hired or the lady who was just hired. So while this data encompasses all these CEOs, many who have built their own companies, served for decades, it would be interesting to me when I really thought about this. This is not from them. This is my perspective. I wonder what the average CEO tenure is since 2005. Think about 2005 in America. We were rolling high, and all of a sudden, the economic disaster occurred in '06, I believe, and continued to forward for a lot of those years. Plus the rise of social media, which is absolutely ruthless, especially to leaders. I mean, it's hard to be a leader anywhere today. I mean, people are tough, and social media just has become an idol for somebody to get out here and criticize someone, which just takes leaders down constantly. But here's my question. How did you beat that 4.9 years or that 2 years or whatever? Looking back, I mean, 7 years is a long time to do that job because you had no life. It was rare.
How do you beat the average?
Yeah.
Results.
Results.
So, leaders get results, period. I mean, we knew, not early days, because early days, and I look around, I see a lot of my Tyson friends in the room. There were some early days when we didn't know exactly how good we could be. But once we sort of surprised ourselves a time or two, we built up a head of steam, and not I wouldn't say we ever got cocky, but we became pretty confident about what we would be able to accomplish. But there were a lot of hard decisions that had to be made. I don't know how many times I said, look, I'm not paid to be popular, I'm paid to be profitable. Because you got to rock the ship a little bit, and you got to give permission. You got to give people permission to mess up, to take a risk, and then know that if it didn't work out. Look, now we know one way it won't work. Let's go find a way that will. And I think creating that environment, creating the right culture, leading with a heart, but none of that. I think all of that is the secret formula to success. But if it doesn't play out in the results, you're not going to stay, right? We had a phenomenal run. And I tell you, you're right. I don't want to sound like a wimp, but it does take a toll on you. I read Joel Manby's book, Love Works. Joel had a part in there where he talked about how much is enough. And I remember I read that about 3 or 4 years ago, and that question just kind of lingered back in the back of my mind, right? And so I think God, who is our sovereign, look, He's the creator. He made the world and everything in it. So He gets to do what He wants. He made it. And so the Creator has shifted me into this period of intermission, leading to what's next. Now, I think there's so many lessons I've got to learn during the intermission that I don't have the clarity that will come about what happens later.
Sure. That's
not necessary. What's necessary now, double down with him, double down with her. I get it. I can do that much, right? But anyway, back to your question. I'm rambling. Back to your question. Results.
That's pretty clear. You kind of have a scoreboard, don't you?
Yeah.
That's right. No doubt about it. Hey, well, Donnie, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Oh, yeah, but look, nobody's perfect, and there's some decisions that I wish I could unwind. But I'll tell you, all of those, the Bible says in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. And so I love God. I'm committed to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I know what God's purpose has been for my life in the last 7 years. So if you really believe what he says, then you can't get all wigged out about the stuff that didn't work, because it's going to work together with all the good stuff that did work out for good. So yeah, I'd probably rewind a few things, but I'm not too sure that the lessons learned through those mistakes weren't part of the decision making that went into some bigger and greater things a little bit further down the road. So God really does work together, all things together for good.
That's great, and that will encourage a lot of folks today. Before I complete this interview, I want to talk to you about the United States of America for a moment. Because
All the press, put down your pens.
Well, I mean, you have walked in your life and leadership now, and I just wonder, as a guy who has transitioned out of one of the world's largest corporations as a leader, and being who you are, if you were in a private setting with the President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, and you could say anything to him about America right now that you believe would forward his vision of moving America forward, what would that be? It's a good question,
It's
isn't
a
it?
great question.
It's my
A great question is a good question is one that you give a good answer to. A great question is one that stumps you. This is a great question. So a couple things. Let me focus on moving the vision forward.
Okay.
I would say we need to have a book club, and we need to get you and your cabinet together. And we need to study Patrick Lencioni's book, The Advantage. Because Patrick, in that book, talks about the difference between smart organizations and effective organizations. And it really boils down to four things that, by the way, we proved right at Tyson. Number one, you need to put together a cohesive team. So, President Trump, you need to surround yourself with a great cabinet. And they need to be able to work together as a team. Second thing, we need to create amazing clarity about what we are going to accomplish. So don't chase rabbits, get focused. And decide what those big rocks are going to be and stay focused on that. Then we need to over-communicate that clarity. So, look, I don't need you to, this would be kind of the smart aleck part, I don't need you to tell me one more time that the media's mad at you because you beat Hillary. Election's over, right? Now you're the president. What I need you to do is to communicate with great clarity around what we need to accomplish. And then the last part then is to build in systems that reinforce that clarity, that clarity of mission. I think. Look, America's the greatest social experiment that's ever been tried. Right? There is no other country on earth like America. There's no other country as great. Yeah, we can talk about all our problems, but we are still by far, I've got to travel all over the world. We are by far the greatest nation on this planet. There's a lot to be grateful for and a great future to look forward to. Now, do we have issues we need to fix? Yeah, we're $20 trillion in debt. Keep going, right? Get a great team around you. Get focused on a small group of things and create great clarity around that. And don't talk about anything but that. Don't get distracted. And then get systems in place that reinforce what you're going to go do. That's what I'd tell him to do.
That's pretty good advice. That's pretty remarkable.
Work for us.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. That's excellent. Now, I want to go one step deeper with that. All right. As an American, with all going on in our country,
Yeah.
if you were speaking to the entire nation right now,
Yeah.
which you're not, but
Yeah.
you are speaking to a lot of the nation
Yeah.
here today, what would you tell us?
You get your head up. You know, I mean, and this is one of the dangers about social media. And I'm not, you know, stuff happens and we can't unwind or change social media. It is what it is. But everybody becomes an authority on social media, whether they know what they're talking about or not. Right. And somehow it seems to me that we have fallen prey to being victims instead of taking responsibility for our choices in this country. Now, hey, there's a lot of people that don't get to make the choices that everybody in this room gets to make.
That's right.
And some of them need help, and we need to help them, right? But as Americans, we need to get our head up. And we need to start looking forward and to quit talking about all the stuff we don't like and start agreeing on the things we do like about this country and how we can move it forward. So that'd be my message. I'd probably clean it up because I didn't have much time to think about it, but I'd work on that a little bit. But the basic message would be: look, America, get your head up. Yeah. The rest of I was over in London during Brexit. And then I was back in Europe not long ago, just before the election. And frankly, we're freaking them out. I mean, the whole world looks to America as being that common sense place where things get done. They're going, are you kidding? We got to get our head up, and we got to get back to that leadership position, because the rest of the world is looking to us to be that beacon of hope for the planet. That's on us.
That's wonderful. Great word, Donnie. Very helpful. And I want to close with this today, okay? You know how this works. When that goes zero, you're to be quiet. But let me say to everyone before we do that, don't forget to go online and get your tickets for next week. You can go to nwa.com or nwasummit.com and get those tickets, or you can take care of that today. Let's get a great crowd for Chris Mortensen next week. He needs the encouragement, trust me. And he's in a war. He's in a battle for his life, folks. And so let's make a big difference next week. So with that, Donnie, you're on the clock, man. 4 minutes, you tell us whatever's on your heart before you go about anything. Just encourage folks today before you go.
So, what you do matters. You matter. I think so many times we get caught up and we see ourselves as cogs in the machine. And we don't need to view ourselves as leaders as cogs in the machine. We need to, and you know, we all interrelate with people. But we need to view ourselves as Christians on mission for God in the workplace. There's people all around you that are hurting for one reason or another. And you know what? They may or may not make it to church on Sunday. But they're going to bump into you on Thursday afternoon. And they should get a chance to hear a caring question about, hey, how you doing? And if you've been a good witness, or if you will just be one that shows people you care, they'll open up to you. And they'll give you an opportunity to minister to them. We need to do that in the workplace. We don't need to hope that they show up to church on Sunday. Since they're in the cube next door, we need to build that relationship, and we need to be God's light, and we need to minister to them right then and right there. You know, you control the environment that the people around you at work will spend a third of their lifetime in. Some of you seem to be bent on making them miserable for a third of their life. I wish you'd stop. I really do. And I bet the people around you would really wish you would stop. And I bet what they would really like you to do is to say, you know what? I am responsible for how the people in my group spend a third of their life. And for that environment, I'm going to make that environment awesome to where they just jump up out of bed every day and just want to run to work. They want to get a speeding ticket on the way to work. They love it so much. What would happen in Northwest Arkansas if everybody here left with that frame of mind and went back to work and infected your workplace with the love of Christ and with caring? It changed the place. That's on us. Everybody here can do that. Everybody here can love. Everybody here can care. We just need to get real intentional about doing that. So, as we consider our role in the kingdom, you know, and I don't want to the whole interview's been about me, but I don't want to speak. But God purposes us individually, uniquely, for seasons. You go back and read through the Bible. You know, Moses was the guy that led them out of Moses spent a lot of time in Midian in the desert. Then God called him to lead the people out of Egypt. But then he chose Joshua to take them across and do all the battles, right? And you can go on and on and on about leaders for seasons. Just look at all the judges, leaders for seasons, purposed in a unique way. You are purposed in a unique way to be right where you are for this season. Man, use that opportunity to make an impact for God. Wherever you are. I'm done.
Wow. You are a champion, my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Donnie Smith. Let's give him one big thank you. Donnie, thank you. We love you. Appreciate you. Y'all have a great afternoon.